Well, the bipartisan infrastructure bill has cleared the Senate. In the bill, a proposed extension to Interstate 14 stretching through Texas. What economic impact the interstate project will have. And while the bill is granting money to finish I-14 construction, there's a lot of other moving parts included. KRHD investigates what else is inside the massive infrastructure bill. Your KRHD News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley. This is KRHD News.
This morning, the U.S. Senate voted 69-30 to pass President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure bill, with 19 Republican senators joining Democrats to vote in favor of the measure. The bill now heads to the House of Representatives. Included in the bill was funding for a massive expansion project to I-14 from Odessa, Texas to Augusta, Georgia. Good evening, I'm Hallie Jones. With that expansion of the interstate comes potential economic growth for the Brazos Valley. KRHD News reporter Rebecca Fiedler joins us with more on how a new interstate could bring an economic boom.
A major interstate making its way through Brazos County would have significant impact on the Aggieland economy. Today I spoke with a couple of members of the local business community to see what their take was on the subject. David Posadas, owner of a downtown Bryan restaurant, has mixed feelings on the idea of a major interstate passing through the area. Posadas has the unique perspective of having watched an interstate construction at his first restaurant location in Spring, Texas.
The first thing that came to mind was the Grand Parkway in going through Spring, Texas. And it was really close to where we were in our Taco Crave in Spring. And it disrupted a lot of businesses. I know that for a fact. Friends, they had to close businesses down, restaurants, because of the construction. It took so long.
Posadas says he doesn't know that an interstate would necessarily bring in more traffic to his locally owned restaurant, as opposed to major fast food chains. Still, the idea of a completed interstate does have its perks.
I like the idea as long as it's not going through town, you know. If it's outside, on the outskirts of town, I think it'll bring a lot of development to the area.
According to the Brazos Valley Economic Development Corporation, this new road bringing East and West Texas together could be a welcome route for many industries in the Brazos Valley.
Companies really ask and look for the type of transportation that an interstate brings. Oftentimes, they're wanting to know what is the access to major metros in the surrounding area.
Brazos Valley EDC President Matt Prohaska says that Interstate 14 coming through town could be just one important piece of an even bigger picture of economic development. This would include the potential construction of an Interstate 214 corridor loop in the local area and the proposed installation of a high-speed train that would pass through Grimes County.
So all of this together really benefits us and gives us more competition and a greater leg up in terms of our economic development efforts for the Brazos Valley.
A major question remains: would metropolitan development change the close-knit community feel of Aggieland?
We have the benefits of maybe a larger metropolitan area, but also the benefits of a smaller town feel and the great relationships and the quality of life. And all of those, I think, will be enhanced with I-14.
Reporting in Brazos County, Rebecca Fiedler, KRHD News.
Earlier, I spoke with Mayor Andrew Nelson and Mayor Carl Mooney to discuss what the I-14 expansion would mean for the Brazos Valley, noting how beneficial it would be for our local economies.
What would this mean for Bryan and College Station's economies, respectfully?
Outside businesses often ask, how far are you from an interstate? It's a key metric when people are looking to put offices, people are looking at whether it's manufacturing facilities that are exporting and shipping, or whether it's getting your people to offices in white collar jobs. So it's very important. Mayor?
Yeah, no, I think Andrew's hit the nail on the head right there.
Coming up at 6, hear more of my conversation with the mayors and what it will take to get an interstate through the Brazos Valley. I-14 is finally getting the long-awaited money to not only finish the road, but to expand it to the east and west too. The money for this project sits in the huge infrastructure bill before the United States Congress. KRHD News investigator Dennis Turner shows us what else the bill includes.
A good quality of life keeps people coming back to Central Texas, and especially to beautiful Bell County. People like Ashley Farney and her family, who we met last year.
We moved back in 2016 from the state of Arizona for my husband to be closer to his dad. And then military orders came. We moved to Washington State, and my husband got out of the military, and we decided we loved Bell County, and we loved Troy specifically.
They settled in Troy, on the fringe of the county, and wonder about what impact the expansion of I-14 might have. Right now, that remains in the hands of the United States Congress.
You can just look at the number of inches of the document in front of me. It is significant.
The long-hoped-for expansion of the interstate became a little more real when Senators Cruz and Cornyn got it added as an amendment. It got such wide support, the Senate approved it with a simple voice vote. Other items in the bill don't necessarily enjoy such popularity. The bipartisan infrastructure bill, there's also a totally different and Democrat version, includes about $110 billion for various transportation programs to build roads, bridges, and even help those of us who walk to work or school. It falls way short of the $786 billion the American Society of Civil Engineers says we need to spend to address a huge backlog of repairs to roads and bridges alone, but most call it a good start.
If you ask the question, is more needed? Absolutely more is needed. And again, public transportation has been underfunded for decades.
Speaking of public transit, the bill would give Amtrak $66 billion and a new mission to, quote, meet intercity passenger rail needs, perhaps removing some of the pressure on the government's run-like-a-business railroad to make a profit. You'll find $73 billion for a makeover of our electric grid that helps us take advantage of more clean energy, like the windmills outside Mart. That includes money to help us cope with climate change, with more flood control, and new technologies like carbon capture. When it comes to internet services, which have become as vital to us as the telephone did to our grandparents or even great-grandparents, $65 billion would help us bring fast broadband internet service to rural areas and help those of us with low incomes to pay for it in cities. Now, how do we pay for all this? It would redirect more than $200 billion in pandemic relief, ending those expended unemployment payments, small business loans, and other emergency aid. It puts taxes on cryptocurrency transactions to the tune of $28 billion. It's something the Bitcoin miners in Milam County have no doubt begun to watch closely because it would classify them as brokers, triggering more disclosure in their tax returns. The biggest problem on the horizon, what the ever-changing coronavirus might do. If things get too bad, we may have to redirect money we put here back into relief programs.
90% of the jobs created by this legislation will not require a college degree. 90%. It's a blue-collar blueprint to rebuild America.
The Farneys look forward to getting around easier, but hope all this change doesn't change Troy too much.
It's going to be really interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see the growth and the progression of the town, and hopefully it still continues to stay that small town feel, and we don't lose that.
Leaders here say they aim to do just that, maybe even with some help from that big infrastructure bill. In Troy, Dennis Turner, 25 News.
New at 5, Texas House Democrats who left the state to break quorum for the special legislative session could soon be detained and brought back to Texas. This after the Texas Supreme Court voided a district judge's temporary restraining order barring their arrest. Some Democrats have returned to the state, but many remain in Washington, D.C. Also new at 5, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says he will resign following multiple accusations of sexual harassment. Cuomo's resignation will be effective in 14 days. Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, who is also a Democrat, will serve the rest of his term following his resignation. She will become the state's first female governor. Agricultural economists at Texas A&M are finding that the current trading of agriculture goods is beneficial for both consumers and the Texas economy. Although Texas and the rest of the U.S. imports huge amounts of agricultural products from nations like Mexico, Texas has been able to meet the demand to export goods like corn, grains, and cotton to foreign nations. This in turn bolsters the Lone Star State's economy.
Of products, all the way from grains, corn, wheat, to cotton, to fruits and vegetables. We have dairy, we have livestock. I mean, we're really good and very efficient. So when you look at that, 95% of the world population is outside of the U.S. Those are a huge market for our producers, and the more that they produce, the more efficient that they get.
In 2020 alone, Texas exported nearly $280 billion in goods around the globe. More than $6.5 billion of that was in agricultural goods.
Addressing climate change is on all of us. Strategies to do it are now becoming part of training at work. Deloitte just started a climate learning program for its 330,000 workers. It's a first of its kind program among major global organizations.
Our training, it has, the basics of climate change so people understand a little bit about the science. Then we talk about what Deloitte is doing. So we don't just want the burden is not only on them. We want them to be cognizant of all the actions we've taken as part of our world climate strategy. And then we also have a piece around how they themselves can start to affect change in their daily lives.
Kathy Alsagaff was involved in developing this new program for Deloitte. She says that they knew the importance of including a rational argument around climate change, but also an emotional part of it. Casey Bush's research focuses on climate change, and she found that education about it needs to be effective with communicating the societal parts of climate change, just as important as clearly communicating the science.
There are additional concerns that the sources that adults learn from might be misinformational or disinformational. And so one of the things that they have found that is most important is the messenger and whether or not that messenger is a trusted messenger. And I think that, in the case of an employer, then you're ticking that box.
As far as turning that knowledge into action, Bush says it has to be a long-term commitment with multiple follow-ups.
If you're thinking about the recipe, right, like it's a pinch of knowledge, a half cup of social norms, and a quarter cup of efficacy, and the structural pieces to really boost all of that for action to be happening over a longer period of time.
We like to think of the training as, not the end of the course, but a beginning of a journey.
Deloitte lets employees pick action items for themselves, and they can get an email check-in in 30 days. The company believes that this training could lead to employees bringing up climate change and conversations more with their clients as well. Now, there's only one summer camp in the entire country that has a mission to teach kids about racism. Next on our lineup, what parents say they believe is the biggest benefit. As of this week, more than 71% of the adult U.S. populations received at least a dose of the COVID vaccine. Still, distribution remains uneven across states and ethnicities. Take a look at these numbers. They are the latest from the CDC, showing the highest percentage of people who have received at least a dose are Native Americans, followed by Asian Americans, those who are Hispanic or Latino, and those who are white. Vaccination rates are lowest among Black Americans. Now, as virus surges give rise to more resistant variants, healthcare institutions say community outreach to those still on the fence is now the front line of battling the virus. Usher Qureshi takes a look at the effort to reach the unvaccinated.
Tomato sauce, spicy lemon, cucumber, and tamarind.
Mexican traditional mug.
Just some of the possible ingredients for the spicy beer cocktail known as michelada.
As the years have progressed, a lot more people, a lot more brands have made their own spin or version of it.
At the return of this summer festival, traditional dancing, merchandise, and drinks are on the menu, but the global pandemic is still top of mind.
This is a big gathering place, and I know a lot of people are nervous about coming out.
Healthcare workers here are educating festival goers on home testing options.
Are you guys vaccinated?
They're also patrolling the grounds, promoting the importance of getting the shot.
We are here offering the COVID vaccine.
But Alma Blancarte Mora, a community health nurse, says they don't anticipate being flooded by people clamoring to get vaccinated.
We're at a festival and we're not expecting to vaccinate hundreds of people, but what we are doing is connecting with people, letting them know that we're here.
A recent analysis by the Kaiser Family Foundation found that of the total number of adults in the U.S. who have received at least one dose, 61% are white and 29% are Hispanic or Black.
And this is your first dose.
24-year-old Daytan Del Valle, a Michelada Festival attendee, had been thinking about getting the vaccine, but finally rolled up his sleeve at the beer fest.
Friendly staff came to me and was like, you want to have it? I figured it was convenient today for me to get it, and I got it.
In some states, the shares of vaccinations going to Hispanic people are increasing. Florida, Nevada, California, New Jersey, Texas, and New York, for example, all saw increases by at least 10 percentage points. Organizers here say that this is the new front line in the global fight against the pandemic.
The majority of the people that are visit us is going to be because they've heard it through the word of mouth at the festival.
Grassroots events like this that honor culture and tradition, they say, will help build trust where it may be in short supply. Reporting from Chicago, I'm Usher Qureshi.
It has been a partly cloudy day here across the Brazos Valley, and those temperatures, well, they've been soaring into the 90s once again. It looks like we're trying to get an isolated storm to develop. I think most of that's going to be south and east of here, though. 96 degrees, feeling like 104. Yeah, it's hot because that dew point sitting at 71 degrees. It's always that humidity with those partly cloudy skies. Winds are out of the south at 11 miles per hour. And as we check out what we're tracking here in the tropics, nothing nearby, but as you head down near Puerto Rico and then the Dominican Republic here in the Caribbean, look at that. That's a pretty good swirl developing right there. Now, this is still potential tropical cyclone number 6. It will likely become Fred later on tonight, as it is looking very impressive here on the satellite picture, and winds up to 35 miles per hour. Once we get that 40, we're there, and we're gusting to 45 miles per hour, moving west-northwest at 17 miles per hour. So this is a fast-moving tropical system that will continue to make its way off toward the west, and as that happens, it will likely track through the northern Caribbean, through Cuba, and then eventually off the west coast of Florida. Right now, it looks like it'll take a turn well before it gets to our part of the Gulf of Mexico. Other than that, clouds and radar, pretty quiet around here, probably going to stay that way. A few isolated thunderstorms across East Texas. And for us tonight, temperatures will be down into the mid to upper 70s. And tomorrow, more mid-90s on the way, but it'll feel like it's over 100 when you factor in that humidity. And checking out your forecast, high temperatures right around 96 on Wednesday, 95 Thursday, feeling like 100 to 105 in the afternoon. Then maybe a couple thunderstorm chances, especially by the weekend into early next week, as a weak front will try to have an approach here on the area, probably hanging up just to our north.
By now, telemedicine has become a new normal. It was especially helpful during the peak of the pandemic when our pets needed checkups but couldn't step into the vet's office. Since then, some rules for vet visits have loosened. In some states, you still need to have an established relationship with your veterinarian prior to a virtual visit, but in other places, what's called teletriage is now open to more people.
Teletriage is more specifically a thing where the provider, so the veterinarian or a technician at that point, doesn't have a relationship per se with the person that's calling and their pet.
Now, with these types of virtual visits, owners can ask for general advice about something that their pet may be experiencing at that moment. From there, the vet will tell you that it's necessary that you seek immediate help, perhaps, or if you should schedule an appointment for another time. Now, while it is better for you to see your vet in person, there are some cases where it's beneficial to do it virtually.
Cats are, can be a little bit more difficult to bring to the vet than dogs. Dogs are often happy just about, seeing anyone happy, anyone outside of their home. And so cats are not so much. They don't necessarily enjoy the ride in the car, that sort of thing. So this could give an opportunity in the future if telemedicine becomes more mainstream and sort of the states would allow that more cats may be able to receive veterinary care.
Some other instances where a virtual visit is convenient include when you're following up on an issue and your pet is showing improvement. But veterinarians highlight that it is still important to keep up with in-person yearly checkups. An easy to remember suicide prevention hotline is supposed to launch nationwide in less than a year. And we're learning that the money to get 988 up and running smoothly isn't available in most places. Tomorrow, what it's going to take to get that funding in place in time.
Here are some of the stories we're working on for Krhd News at 6. While we've seen the potential economic impact the I-14 expansion project will have, what impact will it have on businesses looking for a new home in the Brazos Valley? Plus, we know that interstate expansion will have an economic impact on our area, but when will we actually see that impact? These stories and more coming up on Krhd News at 6. Well, World News tonight is just ahead, and we're back in 30 minutes for our 6 o'clock newscast. Until then, have a good evening.